And so I'm just saying to you, Congressman Payne, just as we feel that sense of calm and peace, that all is well when you arrive here in Washington, I know that people feel the same way in Darfur and in Rwanda and around the world. It is my honor to introduce Chairman Donald Payne.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Conversation and Dinner with African Ambassadors. As you know, this is a series that Africa Society has begun, and I have the privilege of serving as a co-chair of this conversation with Senator Lugar. The crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo was initially mediated by South Africa. The civil war in Burundi came to an end after many years of dedicated mediation by former Tanzania President Julius Nyerere and later by former South African President Nelson Mandela. We commend what progress has been made towards housing in South Africa, and we continue to support that. We know that there are many problems that continue, but South Africa is on the right track. I certainly, once again, commend Africa Society for the outstanding work that it is doing in creating a constituency for Africa, the educational programs that it's doing at universities, this series that they are doing, and we continue to support the society.
Thank you, Chairman Payne. Many of us in this room are old enough to remember the end of apartheid in the first multiracial elections in 1994. And the world watched as they had the Truth and Reconciliation process. And we hope that the racial divides that we saw in South Africa would result in healing not only in that country, but in other countries around the world. South Africa is a powerhouse, and we all look to South Africa. It is for its economic prowess, for its influence in the region, for the role it has in the continent and in the world. Rachel Swarns is very familiar with South Africa. She was a Washington correspondent for the New York Times and joined the New York Times Bureau in March 2003, and she's written about immigration, politics, and poverty issues. Between 1999 and February of 2003, she actually served as the Times Johannesburg bureau chief. I welcome Rachel Swarns.
Thank you very much, and it is actually my pleasure this evening to do an introduction myself of Ambassador Welile Nhlapo of South Africa, who has had a long and distinguished career in public service. The ambassador was born in Johannesburg and was active in the long struggle against apartheid. He worked with Steve Biko and the South African Students Organization and was banned from the country in 1973. In exile, he joined the African National Congress and over the next 20 years served in various capacities in the organization. In 1994, the year that Nelson Mandela became the country's first Black president, he joined the Department of Foreign Affairs. And I'm very glad that he's here in Washington. And I hope that we can all give him a great and warm welcome this evening.
But I think I'm beginning to realize the importance of the African society and the contribution that they're making in ensuring that African diplomats can have access to policymakers and journalists based here in Washington. I decided to deal with the challenges of democratization and transformation based on the South African experience, because I think most of the time when questions and debates about South Africa are raised, some of the things that Chairman Payne has mentioned and some of the experiences that we have gone through seem to fade away from the radar of those who are interested in pursuing and understanding what is happening now. Now, let me say, since the transition to democracy in 1994 and the attainment of freedom for all, South Africa has made important advances towards the goal of a better life for all our people. While the challenges of poverty and underdevelopment remain acute, the necessary basis for a sustained, integrated, and comprehensive development of our country has been laid. In each of the 14 years of democracy that we have celebrated, it has always been absolutely critical that as a government and a nation, that we take stock of the progress that has been made and reflect upon the impediments in dealing with our challenges and how to overcome these. The first years of our democracy saw the introduction of a new constitutional and legislative framework. In 1996, a new constitution was adopted, and within this framework, our polity has seen progress in political stability, government effectiveness, regulatory quality, integrity and legitimacy of the state and the rule of law, systems to expose and deal with corruption, and of course, adding to the people's voice and accountability of government. The development and progress in these areas was vital in a process towards national reconciliation through assurance of the enforcement of the nation's basic human rights. In 1994, when the current ruling party, the ANC, took over the reins, South Africans in all spheres of life were divided along racial lines, a divide which has enforced through repression and the denial of the most basic of human rights. The economy was isolated by the international community and stagnated while the state debt grew. The immediate challenge, therefore, was to revitalize the economy and create the political environment which ensured the basic human rights for all. Challenges that we face as a society and a nation. The government has been advocating that South Africans themselves are the greatest resource in the solution of some of these problems. The fight against crime. Quite a popular question that one comes across most of the time. Communities are an integral part in the fight against crime in South Africa. One of the biggest impediments involving communities in the fight against crime is changing the mindset of communities to view the South African police services as a resource to communities as opposed to the pre-1994 period when police officers unleashed terror and repression on black people. The South African Police Services has a new mandate to protect the citizens of South Africa. A business in South Africa have united to support government and community efforts to fight crime. There has been an influx of foreign nationals into South Africa. We're talking about victims of human trafficking, which nothing is said about them. And the concentration mainly becomes Africans who are coming from our own region. And those, I must say that those are people who have been part of that South African economy. We've always been doing the jobs that South Africans were refusing to do. And they've been drafted into the mines and other sectors of the economy to work, and most of them lived in South Africa for many, many years. And some of them have taken even South African permanent residency. That's where you find a lot of your Zimbabweans, well documented, who have there for work and always been coming there for work. The new influx of Zimbabweans, I think it's a different matter altogether we can deal with. But when people talk about that, they don't talk about the problematic element of Zimbabweans, which are white Zimbabweans that left Zimbabwe, who are in South Africa, who are mobilizing the white community, causing a lot of confusion at times in terms of the issues and how the government is dealing with the issues in Zimbabwe. However, equally important is that politically and socially, South Africans are still dealing with integrating racially and have been forced to deal with foreign nationals and integrating them into our own society. South Africa has held 3 free and fair elections since 1994. Voter turnouts have been phenomenal, and there has been little or no violence associated with these elections. This can be attributed to the existence of the Independent Electoral Commission, as well as a large-scale voter education. And of course, the strength of our own institutions and our commitment of our people to those institutions. But part of the challenge also was to amalgamate 9 different educational systems into one, which were created by the apartheid government, and the institutions of learning based on those and those educational systems is part of the challenge that we're still trying to grapple with, to ensure that we can streamline our education system to serve the needs of our growing economy. Our economy grew by 6% in 2006, our highest rate of economic growth in 25 years. The unemployment rate has declined for 3 years in a row, with over 1 million jobs created in this period. This growth has been relatively broad-based, with the share of income going to Africans rising to about 50% in 2005. The number of Black people entering the middle class increased by 30% in a single year to 2.6 million in 2006. This has also created its own problems, but it has also ensured that Black people can begin to move into certain sectors of the economy from which they've been prevented by law in the past. The Accelerated and Shared Growth Initiative for South Africa objective is to ensure that economic growth accelerated with the aim to halve unemployment and poverty by 2014. It is a national shared growth initiative comprising of a set of concrete economic proposals. It is not a new economic policy, but an initiative to sustain higher and shared growth of GDP, addresses second economy issues. The poorest populations remain largely excluded, except through remittances and social grants, which in itself creates a lot of problems. Let me conclude by saying that one of the issues that we are dealing with at this moment, and most of the questions that arise is where is South Africa going to from here? We are confident that given the strength of our institutions based on our constitution and the respect of our people for that constitution and the confidence that the institutions created under it inspired and protected their rights, that this is going to be the basis of a sustainability of our democratic dispensation in our country. But let me just end up by saying that we are committed as a country and the people to rise above all difficulties and problems and challenges that we face from time to time. And I think the recent developments in terms of what has been called xenophobic attacks, which in reality they are not, there's an element of that, but there's also an element of other things that have resulted in that, because even the number of people that have lost their lives and who are victims of these attacks include South Africans. It is not a problem of South Africans, but a few amongst us who took advantage of a particular situation and created the problem that we all, I think, we've been familiar with. And if we say that we have overcome that problem, and in the process of doing so, with the cooperation of the private sector and the contribution financially that they've been making for relief and other purposes, we believe that this united spirit displayed by South Africans is what will always sustain us. And that whatever challenges that we are going to meet in the future, we have the confidence that we'll overcome them. Thank you.